Hi Mum, you do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Alina, Director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits at my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything is backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hello and welcome everybody to the podcast today for Mentally Strong Mums. We are very lucky and grateful that we have a beautiful guest today. Her name is Sarina Coventry. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It feels like an absolute honor to be here, and I'm excited to chat all the things we're going to discuss today.
Yay. All the mums, this is going to be absolutely amazing, and I feel really eye-opening and really, really special. So just before we begin, Sarina, she's a women's health nutritionist and clinical EFT tapping practitioner. And this is what we will be discussing the majority of the time and how it can be beneficial for you. So Sarina's mission is to empower women so they can transform their relationships with their own body, their reproductive health, and also maintain a regulated nervous system, which obviously, in my opinion, is the best, right? So she supports women to balance their own hormones. And from my perspective, a lot of people don't understand their hormones. So this will be so amazingly beneficial for mums, and even for some mums, an introduction to hormones and what this can look like, right? She also can help process trauma as well as negative beliefs that are related to themselves as a woman, as a human, as a mother, and then even the world around them. So she's compassionate and passionate about teaching women to work with their body rather than against it. So then you can holistically restore a state of well-being and calm. So isn't that exciting, Sarina?
Yes, there's a lot in there when I hear it that way. But yeah, I'm so immensely passionate about all those things, and I am just obsessed with women's health and just helping women to feel their ultimate best. I think so many of us are suffering. There's a lot of challenges in life, especially when it comes to being a parent.
Yes.
I think that throws a lot of unexpected challenges at you. So yeah, I just want to help all the women, all the mums that I possibly can.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah. I've also got a little background information on you, and you are a self-proclaimed total learning geek, right? Which I think we all kind of need to be. So curious, love exploring all things. And so especially with a background in being clinical nutritionist and a Bachelor of Health Science, it definitely helps you understand, well, I'm guilty. I am a geek, right? I love all of this kind of stuff.
Yes, I know, and I've always been really curious. So I comment everything from a very curious lens of, oh, I wonder why that happens, or I wonder why we do this, or we behave like this. And I think that's what kind of got me into nutrition in the first place. And although it sends me down a lot of rabbit holes and a lot of tabs open on my computer, I'm curious about everything, and I want to understand and learn everything that I possibly can. And I'm sure sometimes it's to my detriment because I can just go into these holes for hours of trying to find out why. But I think, when I am working with clients, it definitely makes me want to understand the whole picture and the whole kind of holistically what's happening for them and their health and their overwhelm or the challenges that they're facing. So it definitely has a positive benefit for them.
Yeah, well, especially when you're looking for a practitioner or someone to support you, you're the kind of person that we need to find because of your passion, your curiosity, and rabbit holes, even though it takes, but rabbit holes are good because then it's this evolution within yourself, and then being able to know that you can help your clients the best possible way that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely what I strive for.
Yay. So I'm so excited. I want to get into this straight away. So if you don't mind, could you please explain to me about EFT tapping? How does it work? And then how does it impact the body? Especially for those, if you can assume that no one has ever heard of EFT tapping before.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes people call it EFT, sometimes people call it tapping. You might have also heard it called emotional freedom techniques, which I guess is its full name. But it is an evidence-based form of cognitive and somatic therapy that has been researched looking at it for the last 20 years. And it's cognitive in the fact that we are working with the mind, and somatic in the fact that we're working with the body as well. So it involves tapping on these specific acupressure points along the body. And I know when I first saw EFT, I was like, oh, this looks a bit weird. What are these people doing? And why are they tapping on their head or beside their eyes or something like that? But once I started doing it, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. So it involves tapping on these acupressure points along the body. And I often explain it as most people are familiar with acupuncture.
Yes.
Where they're using needles in certain parts of the body. And so in EFT, we're tapping on certain parts of the body. So these acupressure points are founded in that traditional Chinese medicine. And these points are almost like energy lines or meridians that are moving through the body. And so when we're tapping on these points, it sends a calming response to part of your brain called the amygdala. This is kind of your emotional center. This is kind of part of your brain that alerts for threats. So as you're tapping, it interrupts this stress response so that you can process the difficult emotion that you're thinking about, or the experience that you've been through, or the challenge, or the physical sensation in your body. So that when you're kind of focusing on that challenge, you can shift your body from this state of stress. So when your nervous system's in this state of kind of fight or freeze, into a state of calm. And people who, I guess, have no idea how emotions or how experiences or challenges actually impact us on a body level. You think about the last time you were really stressed, or you were really angry, or you were frustrated, or you were sad. Think how that made your body feel. And a lot of us can register really clearly with that anxious feeling where you might feel really tight in your chest, you might feel clammy. On the somatic level, on the mental level, you might have all these kind of racing thoughts. But when we are working with EFT, we're able to really connect to that feeling in the body. And then while we're tapping on these points, it's separating that stress response from that sensation. So you can process those things. And then once you kind of get to the root of a problem or a challenge or whatever kind of limiting belief that was, then it's generally cleared for good. So it has long lasting results. It's not just this kind of in the moment. Yes, in the moment it does make you feel good, but when you use it in a clinical setting, it has really long, impactful changes for your entire nervous system and your stress response, and how kind of triggered or kind of emotionally distressed you might get around certain situations or things. It can really help to break down.
I really love that explanation. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that for us, because it can be very difficult if you've had a lifetime of either trauma responses or overwhelm or anxiety. There is absolutely no way you know your body, you can be present in your body, or if you dissociate constantly. And so I think it's very important, especially through this process, for you to help people get back into your body. This is what's happening. You are safe now. Your body's not an enemy. You don't have to flight, freeze, fawn, whatever that looks like. And I think for some people, especially if we've had our entire existence without knowing what we're authentically feeling, or have ever had the opportunity to feel safe in our own body, this is such a fabulous answer for people, especially as an introduction to understanding what's going on in their own body in a safe environment. So if something does feel triggering or upsetting, then at least knowing that a practitioner like Sarina can actually be there for you, can help you then be in the moment to regulate. And that's what I was going to ask you next. So why, in your opinion, especially with your experience, if mums haven't heard of this, why is the nervous system support and emotional regulation so important?
Oh, amazing question. So many big answers.
Yeah.
So I like to think, so every kind of emotion or experience that we have has its way of impacting the nervous system. So if we have an icky conversation with our partner, it might leave us feeling an element of dread in our body. If we get a call from school that our child's been misbehaving, we might have this anxiety spell.
I hate those calls.
Yeah, if our kid just doesn't go to bed and we're so exhausted and we're frustrated and all of this, it builds and builds and builds on I often think of it as every human has like a load of stress and a load of kind of components that they have. So I imagine this as being a bucket. And when you're a parent, you have a bucket and you're filling it with your own stress. Some parents who still have to go to work, who have to handle relationship dynamics, who have to think about making enough money to buy, I don't know, it depends how old their kids are, but school clothes and food and sporting and driving them places. That's a lot. Within that, you're also still trying to manage your emotions and your social life and your friends and what you do for downtime and how you create a level of inner peace when you're also, if you have small children, these small children are solely reliant on you to support them. So your bucket builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And for a lot of the mums that I see, the bucket is completely overflowing. Their level of tolerance and their capacity has just been completely overstretched and overreached, so that any little thing that happens feels immensely overwhelming. Or they have these really, again, it depends on people's nervous system response. Some people will shut down. Some people will get angry when they're stressed. Some people will just kind of freeze and not know what to do. But you are at your capacity on an emotional level. Your nervous system is just like completely in overdrive. And you might get really snappy at your kids. You might get really snappy at your partner. You might not be able to emotionally support your children when they come to you with tough things at school because you're so overwhelmed in yourself. So I think that for mums especially, having a practice where again on that bucket analogy, I think of EFT as it pokes holes in that bucket when you are tapping. You're removing yourself from that stress response. You're processing the events or the emotions and the challenges so that you're not overflowing as much. And I think that when you do that, you just have a greater capacity for everything in your life. You can feel more balanced. You have a clearer frame of mind, so you can handle the kids, you can handle school pickup, you can have a more positive relationship with your partner, you can cook dinner without everything being so overwhelming and stressful. So it just really enhances your capacity to do all the things that we need to do in life, and do them in a way that feels good for us, not like I've got to tick that off, or this kind of urgency of, oh my God, that has to get done. So it gives you that space to, being a mum, the jobs don't stop.
Well, I was just going to say, that's such a beautiful explanation of your nervous system support and emotional regulation, especially with mums, and how our hormones and estrogen impact our mental load, and how easy it can be just to slip into that little psychological burnout, and then how the brain then starts to shut down when there is burnout, when there is overwhelm, and then our coping mechanisms are all out the window. Bring me the chocolate, bring me the wine. I don't want anyone around me. And then it's all of that touch fatigue, just all of it. So especially from that, when we come back to EFT tapping, how can this then benefit mums who are struggling or feeling really overwhelmed?
Yeah. So if it's a self-led practice or they're working, one-on-one with a practitioner,
Mm.
when they are able to kind of use this tapping technique, they
Mm.
can tune into whatever the challenges are that are happening for them. If it's just a day of feeling really overwhelmed,
Mm.
then they can just sit in their own space
Mm.
and use this practice for 10, 15 minutes. What does that overwhelm feel like in my body? 10,
Mm.
15 minutes out for them, they can tap on the points and shift that nervous system from, again, that state of stress into that state of calm.
Mm.
Um, I was having a conversation with a woman the other day, and she was sharing how this is I don't know how evidence-based this is, but this was a theory that she was talking about that she
Mm.
had read. Um, for mums who have teenage daughters,
Mm.
often the things that their teenage daughters are going through
Mm.
are things that the mother didn't process when she was a teenager.
Mm.
So, for example, if you had a difficult relationship with food when you were 13, 14, which is often that kind of very pointy time for teenage girls when they're starting to see things happening in pop culture, fad diets, they start questioning, oh, am I attractive to boys? Or their bodies start changing. That's the pointy edge I see where they might start developing issues around food.
Mm.
For a mum who may have had that when she was a teenager but hasn't gone through it,
Mm.
then that happening within her daughter may trigger a whole host of unresolved trauma
Yeah.
she hasn't gone through.
Mm.
And so when you're trying to address that with your child, but
Mm.
you're coming from a place of your own wounding,
Mm.
your own kind of fears of what she might be about to go through, then you're not going to be able to handle that conversation or that situation from a calm and regulated place. You're going to be coming at it from like a triggered, overwhelmed place.
Mm.
So again, this is a very, very specific example, but for a mum who was potentially going through that, then having something such as EFT and working with a practitioner to maybe identify some of the issues she did have with food or some of the emotions around that or the beliefs around that is going to help for her to process and move through a lot of those challenges so that she can then support her daughter much better.
No, that's amazing. And that, especially with all the work that I do, understanding intergenerational trauma, how trauma gets embodied in your nervous system, in your nervous system. How then, if you have unresolved things, you have children, and then the children who are more genetically compatible pops up for you. And then if you are then getting triggered and overwhelmed, you can't then be present with your own children because the triggers are still within you. And from what you're saying, with this EFT tapping, you're able to then first look after yourself, heal your own previous traumas, heal your own unresolved wounds, so that you are then able to be emotionally available, your nervous system's regulated, and then you're able to be emotionally available for your children. And obviously, young boys, especially this day and age, go through a lot of eating, body dysmorphia, all of those kinds of things. So even though you did use that specific example of a daughter, it's not generally gender specific, but it is things to do with mothers. So that's beautiful. And then my other question that I had, especially it's lovely that you can bring it all back to your children. So can mums teach this to their kids?
Yes, absolutely. So often if we're working with adults, we will get them to tune into an emotion they might be feeling, a body sensation. We'll often get them to rate it from 0 to 10, how intense it feels, so that we can kind of continuously score things and see how things are shifting and changing. When we are working with children, we almost strip it right back, so that if we're looking at, say, an intensity rating, we can use hands. So right now, and if people can't see me, all I'm doing is stretching my hands to be, say, 30 centimeters or closer, so it's 4 or 5 centimeters, and we can use that as almost like a rating. So for example, if your child comes home from school and they're really upset, so and so bullied me, I just feel really sad, then you can almost sit them down and you say, okay, how you're feeling sad, how sad do you feel? Like, show me on this hand scale, you know, if your hands are out wide, like 30 centimeters, you're really, really sad. If you're putting your hands closer together, you're not very sad. And then you can ask them, you know, what does it feel like to be sad? Do you feel that somewhere in your body? And they might say, I feel it in my tummy, or they might say, I feel it in my chest. They might not be able to identify it. That's totally okay. But we just get back to being really basic. And then they can go through the tapping points and they can just say, I'm sad. Such and such bullied me at school and I'm sad. We don't have to make it as detailed and specific as we may with an adult. But it's incredible. I have a 4-year-old nephew, and when he gets really, he's a little boy. He just wants to run around and play with trucks, and he gets really hypo. And sometimes when it's too much and he needs to just calm down, we'll sit down and he won't tap on himself, but I'll get him to sit in between my legs and I'll just tap on some of the points on his head and his inner eyebrow, and it really, really calms him down. And I think to be able to teach children when they're young how to incorporate emotional regulation, to identify their emotions. It might be really basic. I'm happy, I'm sad. There's some amazing, I don't personally work a lot with children, but there's some amazing charts online for teaching children emotions with like happy faces and sad faces and whatnot. But to teach them, you know, what is that emotion? How does it feel in your body? As they grow up, they're just going to be really emotionally intelligent and really understand what feels good and what doesn't feel good for them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's this beautiful combination. It's actually a trifecta, what you've kind of identified. The first is that emotional intelligence. Identify the feelings using a feeling wheel, not making it overly complicated. Secondly, using your somatic experiencing. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like in your body? What sensations? And then the third little trifectory is the tapping, because then once you've actually brought it in your body, you're experiencing at the moment, you've identified it. It's that cognitive processing with the emotional intelligence. It's the somatic experience getting into your body. And then when you're doing the tapping, you're regulating it and essentially releasing it. So that's, if mothers don't know what I'm talking about, this can be one of the most amazing things for you or for your children to learn, these 3 techniques. And this is why people like Sarina are so important, because these are tools that if you invest in understanding and knowing them well with people like Sarina or myself or someone that does this, it's lifelong techniques to be able to understand what you need, what's going on in your body, and then releasing things that I don't need anymore, that don't serve me, all of that. So it's beautiful. So then, with all of that and understanding how important this is, how can mothers incorporate EFT tapping daily?
Yeah, so I've got this little free PDF, which might be really easy. We can maybe pop it in the show notes that people can download.
Mamas love a freebie, honey.
Yeah, yes. I know if people are listening to this just on the audio, it can be hard to explain where those points are. But once you learn the points, which are in a little chart on there, then I've got how to kind of create a setup statement, which usually with EFT when we start, we create a setup statement by saying, even though whatever the problem is, so even though right now I feel so stressed.
Yes.
And then the acceptance statement, I deeply and completely accept myself. In there, a bit of how you can create that setup statement, because that's often what people get stuck on. So once you understand how to do that, then you can literally, whatever experience you're having across the day, like I use EFT tapping daily.
Yay.
If I'm in a car park and like there's cars everywhere and I've been in the shops and I'm just like, oh my God, that was really overwhelming, I'll just sit in the car for 5 minutes and tap on the points.
Yeah.
The great thing is that you don't always need to even say anything. If you're in an experience of feeling really tight in your chest or really overwhelmed, or you're just absolutely fatigued and exhausted, then just sit down for 5 to 10 minutes and tapping through these points, just feeling into that feeling. It is amazing how quickly things can shift for you. And I normally do like in a kind of clinical setting, we have the sessions are 1 hour.
Mm.
I recently did an expo at the Mind Body Spirit Festival where I was offering mini 20-minute sessions.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd never done it before. And to be honest, I thought, how much of a shift could people really feel in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And it absolutely baffled me. I had a mum specifically who sat down. She was recently a single mum, and she was saying how overwhelmed she was by the duties and all of the care that she was providing for her son alone. And within that 20 minutes, that overwhelm, I think she had shared that it felt like this almost like crushing on her chest. Within literally 20 minutes of that EFT, she said all of that feeling had just disappeared and she felt so much more regulated. So the results can be quite instant. Obviously, when we are doing deeper work, which is looking at past trauma or those big beliefs, or bigger emotional things that are happening for you, it can definitely take longer. But if you're in an instant moment where you need that relief somatically, then you can just literally do it for 5 or 10 minutes and feel those results. So
isn't it beautiful that we can hear, because a lot of mums at some point in time have felt this way, depending on what circumstances they're in. But it's so lovely to hear the hope that's in your voice, that the hope that you don't have to live this way. There's hope that everything can change. There's hope that you can get control over your body. There's hope that you can feel empowered by understanding the tools yourself. And especially for humans need control and predictability. Otherwise, I feel chaos and turmoil. And this is such a beautiful, simple thing that's what I'm going to ask you next, actually, that if we can find someone to work with, it can give us all this hope, this empowerment, and helping us then feel in control and knowing that we believe in ourselves, we have our own back. I can do this on my own. Whatever happens, I can handle it. And so especially for that, how amazing that hope can be. So for especially our mums out there that are listening to this and that are on the fence about it, can you please explain to me the benefits of working one-on-one with a practitioner and how that would differ from just looking at your PDF?
Yeah, absolutely. So the analogy that I talk a lot in analogies, obviously.
Love it.
The analogy that I have.
We think in pictures.
Yes.
So if you read, so analogies, metaphors are the best. Bring it on.
So the analogy that I've created for this is I liken it to starting at the gym. So if you've never really exercised before and you're like, okay, I want to get really fit. You enroll for a gym membership and you go to the gym. The PDF is like that.
Yeah.
You know, the gym has the equipment, it has the tools. You can go on the treadmill, you can do the thing. But you might feel overwhelmed by how to do the thing. Am I doing it right? If I want to work on my back muscles, what machines would I be using for that? Like, walking into a gym is very broad, right? If we look at working with a personal trainer, you have the tailored guidance of a personal trainer. You can tell them specifically what it is you want to work on. You can ensure you're doing things correctly, and you can know that you have the support and safety of someone who knows what they're doing. So then if we go back to EFT, it's like, I say that if you're doing EFT with something like that PDF, sure, you can focus on the small things, the broad things, the anxiety you're feeling in your chest in that moment. But when you work with a clinically trained practitioner one-on-one, if trauma is involved in some way, you don't want to be trying to address this on your own.
And that's a really good point to make, that you're not a coach. You are a clinically trained practitioner, and that's the difference. So if you're just looking for someone one-on-one, fair enough, you can have a coach. But the difference, what you're coming from and what you're emphasizing, that's really important, especially if you're going to open that little Pandora's box of trauma. and someone's a coach, they're not actually clinically trained as you are, that have put the years in. You completely understand. You've gone down the rabbit holes, you know?
Yeah.
So that's very important for you, for our listeners to understand the difference between having someone, a coach, and someone like Sarina, who is a clinical practitioner.
Yeah. And I guess within that as well, there are numerous, and this is a bone I have to pick with sometimes in this industry.
Yeah,
Is
hit the bone. Hit the bone.
At the moment, I mean, the conversation about trauma and all these therapies, like these intense ice baths and these breath works,
Yeah.
and tailored towards helping people release and move through their trauma. Trauma is huge.
Correct.
It impacts the body massively.
Yes.
And to explore this, I mean, you might start exploring a challenge that you didn't actually realize links back to a traumatic event. And when you open that box, you want to make sure that you're with someone that is trauma informed and clinically trained and knows how to bring you back to a safe place. Because if you enter that box completely dysregulated and you don't have a tool to bring you back into your body, that can almost have worse effects for you, because you might go there, it might feel really scary, and you don't know what's happening, and the person in front of you doesn't clinically know how to support you to become safe and regulated again. And
because they just go, okay, thanks, give me my and then they leave, and they've just opened this whole thing. I love you. I completely agree with everything, and it's so important that people understand the difference of how a clinically trained person, a trauma-informed person, because with trauma, if you're not with someone, or if you just blah 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 whatever, it can do more harm than good. It can upset the whole apple cart. And the beautiful thing that you said is, when you leave the session, the practitioner has your best interests at heart, and they know how to bring you back, how to regulate you so that you're not a spinning top that afterwards, especially then going home to kids. So thank you for your bone.
Absolutely. And I think it's a huge part of it that people aren't talking about it. And I see on Instagram all of these, and I do believe people honestly have the best interest at heart in wanting to support people, but they're saying that they can help people to transform their trauma and turn their pain to power. And it's like, if you don't fully understand how trauma impacts the nervous system, then you can't just shove someone into their trauma capsule and be like, all right, we're just going to hang out here for a while. You haven't wanted to look at this for 20 years, but here we go.
Yes. And it's also, it's also that assumption that all people's traumas are the same.
Yeah.
And that's the complete opposite of the understanding of trauma, because two people could go through the exact same event, and depending on our awareness, our perception, our situation, and how we make meaning of it, one person could find it traumatic and the other person could not. And that's
absolutely.
Yeah. So I love everything that you've just said. Right.
And I mean, even as a practitioner myself, I still work with my own tapping practitioner once a fortnight.
Me too.
Because I do think, and I think it's really healthy in you. I always say, like, the brain that got you into a problem isn't always the brain that can get you out. And I think having someone there to support you, who is there for you, especially mums, you hardly ever get an hour to yourself.
Correct.
So to know that you are sitting in front of someone where you can just have that hour tailored to you. You're not sitting with a friend where it's going back and forth and you're supporting them and they're supporting you. It's just an hour for you to feel into everything that you're feeling, to process the things that you're feeling. And I think that real healing, or exploring those challenges, it's a completely different story trying to do it on your own.
But that's the thing. From my perspective as a therapist, a good therapist gets therapy.
Totally. I fully agree. I found out that psychologists don't have to, like, doing their own clinical hours is an option, like for them personally. And I thought, how is that possible? Psychologists should have to go and see a psychologist.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know about that. I've got the background in social work, and but it's so important ethically that You've got professional development. I'm pretty sure I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, we have to do, as from my perspective, especially with me, I have to do a certain amount of professional development per year, certain amount of education, and ethically to be able to see a supervisor, and then ethically also see my own therapist. So
Yeah.
I want to get back on track.
Yes.
I want to ask one last question before we let you go. So,
Yeah.
my beautiful Sarina, how does EFT fits into a holistic approach to emotional wellness?
Yes. So I think based on what I said before, is that everything that we experience has its emotional component and is going to impact our nervous system. So when we can create a regulated nervous system, when I say regulated, this doesn't mean being calm and together all the time, because that's just not possible, and I don't think it's healthy.
Right.
But it's being able to ebb and flow between the highs and lows and process it as we go instead of getting like stuck. So when we create that regulated nervous system, we create a level of balance in our body, and we're able to then handle these situations from a balanced state. And so when we are regulated, it creates this kind of baseline for how we show up to everything. So we have, like, obviously emotions are from when we talk to our kids, there's an emotional component. To when we go to work, there's an emotional component. To when we are talking to our boss, there's an emotional component. So when you can be regulated through all of that with the support of something like EFT, then it just helps showing up to the world and doing all the things that we have to do every day in a much more balanced state. And it makes that feel much easier than being overly stressed or overly exhausted or overwhelmed. We just have a greater capacity.
No, I love it. It's amazing. Yeah. I really appreciate everything that you've been able to explain today, especially for all of our beautiful mums. And I feel it's been so inspirational what you've been able to deliver. So for all of our beautiful mums, especially in Australia, but those overseas can obviously want to come and stalk her as well. I want to know, where can we find you? So as on Instagram?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram. It's Sarina Coventry. So Sarina Coventry. I think there's an underscore at the end there. And then on my website, sarinacoventry.com as well. And then I do, if you're in Sydney, I have a clinic in person. Otherwise, I run the clinic online as well.
Beautiful. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And we've got a beautiful special little nugget for all of our listeners. So if you are interested, do you do it online as well, or is it always in person?
Yeah, no, I do it online as well. Yeah.
Cool.
So I can
So wherever you are, wherever you are, go to her website, go to her Instagram, Sarina Coventry, Coventry. It'll be in the show notes anyways. Go and find her, and then you're welcome to book whenever she's available. So for all of our listeners today, she's offering, which is so wonderful, 20% off any mum's first consult if they book after listening to this podcast. So when they have the booking form, make sure that you write mentally strong mums. So then that will ensure that you get the 20%. But also, if you're interested just in having a look at the PDF that she was offering as well, go to her website. Is that where it is as well?
Yes. If you go to my website, there'll be a little like shop, and then in there you'll be able to see. It's free, by the way. It's not paid, but you can download it through there.
Oh, that's so exciting. So thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciated your insight, your knowledge, your power. And I love that people like Sarina are the real deal, and she's clinically trained. She understands the nervous system. And if you're ever going to find someone, she's the person that you would find, especially for EFT tapping. And what a significant difference it can make to you, your life, your well-being day to day, preventing burnout, preventing fatigue, helping manage that mental load. And then especially all those single mums out there doing it tough. Sometimes, some days are obviously worse than others, especially if you have your kids full time, because you don't get a break. Kids suck. I've got 3 of them.
Yeah.
but understanding you have this one life and you want to make the most of this life, and she's literally giving you the power and the secrets. So please feel free to go out and reach to her. She's got everything that you need, and you can have a look at all. And if you vibe with her, book her in. What could you have to lose, right?
Yes, and I do offer as well little 15-minute calls to have a chat, see if, whether I do think it's really important to work with someone that you feel good working with as well. That relationship's healing in itself.
Yes.
So you're welcome to book in a call, see if we're the right fit, and if EFT could be right for you. But thank you so much for having me, Alina. It's been great to chat.
No, you're welcome. I really appreciate it, and I hope our mums do. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to be on your website straight after this to have a look at that PDF.
Great.
Thank you so much. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you for your support. It takes me hours to research and create this for you, so I genuinely hope you enjoyed it and felt more mentally strong. If you have any suggestions or improvements, let me know, because I'm always open for criticisms. If you have found my information useful, please leave a review and subscribe. So by leaving a review, it's a value exchange. It's good karma. I value your support just as much as you value my free information. So find me on Instagram and Facebook by searching Mentally Strong Mums, and I'm Aussie, so we're spelled MUM. And then you can find heaps of resources on www.mentallystrongmums.com. And this podcast is for you, so let me know what topics you would like to see covered in future episodes. And if yourself is a professional that is working with mums and would like to be a guest to help other mums be mentally strong, I would love to support you. So message me on Instagram on Mentally Strong Mums, MUMS, all one word. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, you beautiful mum.